She was only 26 when her body finally gave out. Not in some forgotten motel or an empty apartment, but in the middle of a film set under the hottest lights in Hollywood. In early June 1937, the crew of MGM's new picture, Saratoga, watched their brightest star move slower, sweat more, joke less. Her famous platinum hair was still blinding under the lamps, but her skin had turned a strange, unsettling gray. She complained of nausea, of feeling tired all the time. Her co-stars thought it was just the flu, or maybe exhaustion from the studio's punishing schedule. Then one day on set, she looked at her leading man and said she could not see his face clearly anymore. The lines on the script blurred. The world went soft around the edges. Within hours, the most powerful studio in Hollywood would rush its biggest moneymaker to a hospital, trying desperately to keep the public from knowing that their goddess was collapsing from the inside. Doctors would later call it acute kidney failure, uremic poisoning, nephritis. Different names for the same brutal reality. Her organs were shutting down, one by one. Some whispered it went all the way back to a violent scarlet fever she had barely survived as a teenager. The kind of illness that scars the body forever, even when the face on the screen still looks perfect. The studio crafted its statements carefully. They talked about a simple infection, a sudden illness, nothing serious. Outside the hospital walls, theaters across America kept flickering with her image. Laughing, flirting, shimmering in white satin, the original blonde bombshell who turned peroxide into a national obsession. Inside, nurses watched her slip in and out of consciousness while executives argued about what this would mean for their next release. On June 7, 1937, the dream ended. Hollywood's first platinum goddess was gone, lost to a disease no one saw coming, or one everyone chose to ignore until it was too late. And the questions that followed her death would haunt the industry for decades. Was it really just illness? Or was this the first great price Hollywood ever paid for creating a perfect, impossible star? Before Marilyn Monroe ever walked onto a soundstage, before the word bombshell became part of American culture, there was Jean Harlow. She was not simply famous. She was a phenomenon. In the early 1930s, at the height of the Great Depression, when America desperately needed distraction, she arrived like a burst of platinum light. Audiences had never seen a woman like her, the hair impossibly pale, the curves, sculpted like they were drawn by hand, the face, a mix of innocence and danger, and the attitude, playful, rebellious, unapologetically sexual. MGM promoted her as the girl with the platinum hair, a marketing move so powerful that women across the United States began bleaching their own hair in imitation, sparking a national beauty trend. She was the first woman whose color became a brand. But her fame wasn't built only on looks. Jean had a comedic instinct that no one expected. Sharp timing, a natural ability to break tension with a single raised eyebrow. She turned supporting roles into show-stealing moments. She made lines go viral in a decade long before social media existed. Critics called her the only woman who could be funny and seductive at the same time. By 22, she was already one of MGM's most valuable stars. By 24, she was the highest paid actress in the United States. By 25, she was the face of American cinema. Yet even during this meteoric rise, the shadows in Jean Harlow's life were already forming. Hollywood audiences saw the glamorous icon draped in satin gowns, surrounded by diamonds and flashbulbs. But behind the scenes were stories the public never knew. A childhood marked by instability, a mother who treated her like a financial investment, a studio that monitored her image with military precision, and a series of relationships filled with turmoil, jealousy, and tragedy. Jean wasn't just a movie star. She was the first blueprint for every tragic Hollywood blonde who came after her. Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, Carole Lombard, all followed a path Jean unknowingly carved, a path paved with beauty, fame, pressure, and danger. And though she became an icon of glamour, her private life was anything but golden. Jean Harlow's ascent was not slow, steady, or predictable. It was explosive, the kind of rise that made studio executives salivate and the public obsess. Jean never planned to be a movie star. In fact, she arrived in Hollywood by chance, accompanying a friend to a studio appointment. A casting director noticed her waiting in the lobby. The pale hair, the luminous skin, the effortless charisma, and assumed she was an actress. Within days, she was in front of a camera, and audiences reacted instantly. Her small roles in early films, even when she had few lines, made her stand out more than the billed stars. Something about her presence was undeniable, a mix of innocence and danger that Hollywood had never packaged before. Her breakthrough came with Howard Hughes's aviation epic Hell's Angels, 1930. The studio initially doubted her. Critics wondered if she could act. Then the film premiered. Jean Harlow didn't just appear on screen, she detonated. Her famous line, "Would you be shocked if I put on something more comfortable?" became one of the earliest sexual shockwaves in Hollywood talkie history. America had never seen a woman flirt so directly, so boldly. Virtually overnight, she became the country's new obsession. Seeing her potential, MGM signed her and transformed her from Howard Hughes' scandal girl into a refined, luminous star. They changed her wardrobe, her makeup, her demeanor, everything but her platinum hair. That, MGM knew, was gold. She went from a rising star to a cultural force with a series of smash hits. Red-Headed Woman. Red Dust Dinner at 8 Bombshell, a film literally inspired by her own chaotic life, Reckless. Every premiere was an event. Every performance confirmed she was not just beautiful, but charismatic in a way that made audiences fall in love with her. Jean wasn't merely popular, she reshaped what America found beautiful. Hair salons advertised the Harlow Blonde. Cosmetics companies sold powders called Platinum Satin. Women wrote letters to MGM begging for her exact shade of hair dye, a mixture so harsh that the studio refused to release its formula publicly. She created a new archetype, the blonde goddess who was both heavenly and dangerously human. While the public only saw glamour, the truth was far darker. Constant exhaustion from MGM's brutal filming schedules, studio diets that damaged her health, tabloid pressure after her husband's sudden suicide, a demanding mother who controlled her finances and life decisions. Harlow was shining brighter than ever, but burning from both ends. The rise of Jean Harlow wasn't just meteoric, it was unsustainable, because behind every close-up and every spotlight, her body was already breaking. Jean Harlow's fall did not happen in a single collapse. It unfolded slowly, silently, hidden behind studio walls, rewritten by publicists, and buried beneath the myth of Hollywood's brightest blonde. Her second marriage to producer Paul Byrne seemed glamorous from the outside. MGM promoted it heavily, insisting their top star had found stability and love. But inside their home, the reality was far darker. The marriage was troubled from the beginning. Byrne's insecurities, rumors about his sexual difficulties, jealousy, humiliation, tension escalating behind closed doors. On September 5, 1932, Paul Byrne was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head. He left a note, cryptic, chilling, unforgettable. The studio immediately seized control of the narrative, rushing executives and lawyers to the scene before the police could even finish their work. They declared it suicide. They blamed personal problems. They insisted Jean had nothing to do with it. But Hollywood whispered a different story. Some believed Byrne had been murdered by a former lover. Some believed MGM staged a cover-up to protect their star. Some believed Jean herself was in danger, or being manipulated by the studio far more than anyone realized. The scandal never fully went away, and it marked the beginning of a long, invisible descent. After Byrne's death, MGM became obsessed with controlling Jean's image. They supervised every interview. They dictated her public appearances. They pressured her to work nonstop, to stay distracted. Jean became the studio's most profitable asset and its most fragile. Executives monitored her weight, her behavior, her relationships. If she was exhausted, they ordered her to smile harder. If she fell ill, they dismissed it as nerves. Behind the shimmering gowns and diamonds, Jean was becoming a prisoner of her own fame. What the audience didn't see was how her body was changing. Persistent fatigue, swelling in her legs and face headaches, nausea, rapid weight fluctuations, episodes where she could barely stand under the studio lights. Friends noticed she drank gallons of water on set. a classic sign of kidney failure. But MGM brushed it aside, insisting she push through. Her health crisis escalated during the filming of Saratoga in 1937. Her co-stars watched her movements slow, her energy vanish, her face becoming unnaturally pale. Still, the studio kept her working, because Jean Harlow was too valuable to let rest, too famous to admit she was breaking. Jean's mother, known publicly as Mother Jean, was as controlling as any studio executive. She believed in Christian Science, a doctrine that discouraged medical treatment. Doctors were called too late, symptoms were dismissed too casually, and Jean's fear was ignored too often. Those closest to her later admitted. Jean was raised to smile through pain, to submit to authority, and to pretend nothing was wrong until it was too late to save her. Jean was adored by millions, but she lived in a world where the studio owned her, the tabloids circled her, her relationships collapsed, her health deteriorated, and every tragedy she endured was repackaged as glamour. It was the perfect storm: fame, exploitation, illness, and control. By 1937, the girl America worshipped was only a shadow of the woman she once was, and the fall that the world never saw would end in the most shocking final act Hollywood had ever witnessed. In June 1937, the world still saw Jean Harlow as the glowing platinum goddess who ruled American cinema. But the people working beside her on Saratoga knew something was wrong. Terribly wrong. During filming, Jean began showing alarming symptoms. Her skin turning gray, exhaustion so severe she could barely speak, sharp abdominal pains, fever breath that smelled faintly of ammonia, a classic sign of kidney failure. Co-stars Clark Gable and Una Merkel later said she moved as if she were wading through water. She forgot lines she had known by heart. She joked less. She sat down more. Then one afternoon, she looked at Gable and whispered, "I feel terrible. I can't see well." It was the first time she admitted something was seriously wrong. MGM executives were horrified, not by her health, but by the threat to their biggest summer release. They rushed doctors to the set. They ordered secrecy. They told the press she had a simple flu, because the truth that Hollywood's most valuable star was collapsing could cost the studio millions. Jean was finally taken home, where her condition worsened rapidly. Severe vomiting, intense swelling, mental confusion, extreme thirst. Friends noticed she was delirious at times, drifting in and out of consciousness. Her once radiant face became puffy and ghostly pale. On June 6, 1937, Jean was moved to Good Samaritan Hospital. The doctors were shocked. Her kidneys were failing so quickly that her body could not filter toxins anymore. She was in excruciating pain. Her mother, a strict Christian Scientist, resisted aggressive medical intervention, a decision that remains controversial to this day. Many believe that this hesitation cost Jean her final chance at survival. Medical reports from the time were inconsistent. Uremia, acute nephritis, toxic poisoning, strep, throat complications, no one could agree, or no one was allowed to say the full truth. Some Hollywood insiders whispered that her years of brutal filming schedules had destroyed her health. Others believed an untreated illness from childhood had returned with deadly force, and some dark corners of Hollywood even speculated she had been poisoned. A rumor fueled by the gray color her skin took on in her last days. Nothing was ever proven, but nothing was ever fully explained either. In her final hours, Jean drifted into a soft, unfocused consciousness. A nurse later claimed her last clear words were heartbreakingly simple: "I'm so tired." At 11:37 a.m. on June 7, 1937, Jean Harlow, Hollywood's first blonde superstar, died at just 26 years old. The world erupted in shock. Thousands gathered outside MGM gates. Women cried in beauty salons across the country. Movie theaters dimmed their lights in tribute. Hollywood had created her. Hollywood had displayed her. Hollywood had profited from her. And in the end, Hollywood could not save her. Her death was the first major tragedy of the Golden Age. The moment the world realized that behind the glamour, the industry was capable of destroying even its brightest angels. Jean Harlow did not live long enough to fade. She did not become a cautionary tale swallowed by time, nor a star who aged out of the spotlight. Instead, she became something far more powerful, a symbol, the first tragic icon of Hollywood's golden age. Her impact did not end with her final breath. In many ways, it began there. Before Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, Veronica Lake, Lana Turner, there was Jean Harlow. Her platinum hair became the standard. Her sultry comedic style became the template. Her dangerous vulnerability became the archetype. Marilyn Monroe once said she studied Jean Harlow's films obsessively to understand how to move, how to flirt, how to glow under the camera. Every blonde bombshell who followed walked through a door Jean had opened. She wasn't just first, she was definitive. Jean's death forced the public to confront a truth they had long ignored. The Hollywood dream machine was powerful and merciless. Her life became proof that the studio system controlled its stars, manipulated public narratives, concealed scandals, worked actors to exhaustion, and prioritized profit over human well-being. Her tragedy was the first to reveal how a studio could polish a star to perfection while quietly grinding them into dust behind the scenes. After Jean, audiences began questioning the story studios told them. Nearly a century later, Jean Harlow remains a fashion icon, a beauty reference, a subject of documentaries, books, and investigations, a figure whose death continues to raise questions. Her films still screen in retrospectives. Her image still circulates in fashion magazines and pop culture. Her story still fascinates generations who never lived through the 1930s. Because Jean didn't just represent glamour, she represented the cost of it. Most Hollywood legends grow, change, evolve. Jean Harlow never had that chance. She will always be 26, radiant, laughing on screen, draped in satin, and impossibly otherworldly blonde. This eternal youth, this tragic preservation, is part of why audiences remain haunted by her. Jean Harlow's story is not merely the story of a woman. It is the story of Hollywood itself. Its seduction, its control, its beauty, its brutality, and the devastating price some pay for becoming immortal. Final image, the lasting memory. Picture. Jean one last time, standing under a bank of studio lights, hair glowing white, skin luminous, a smile sharp enough to make an entire theater gasp. She looks invincible, but beneath the glow, something fragile is breaking. That is the paradox of Jean Harlow, the goddess who lit up the Golden Age, and whose death cast the first great shadow over Hollywood.